I got a phone call that felt like a prank. A law office out in Redford County telling me I'd just inherited 10 acres from an uncle I barely remembered. 10 acres of what exactly? Mesquite dust and regret. But here's the part that snapped me awake when I drove out there to see it for myself. I didn't find a fence line and a tumbleweed. I found a brand new white cottage with solar panels humming and a woman on the porch drinking lemonade like she paid the mortgage on my land. Yeah, that happened. Let me back up a sec. My name's Mason Cole. 36, architect in Austin. I draw clean lines for people who think mid-century means the year they filed for divorce. Uncle Hank, the donor of this miracle inheritance, was more rumor than relative. A hermit with a shotgun and a suspicious relationship with technology. No phone, no email, barely a mailbox. But the will was real. Notarized tight as a Sunday suit, it said. Do with it what I never could make. It means something dramatic for a man who never returned a birthday card. But sure, 2 hours west on a road that argued with my GPS every mile heat, hanging on my skin like gilt cedar in the air. Coyotes yawning at my city tires. Then I saw it not a shack or an old trailer, a crisp little cottage with a wraparound porch, fresh water tank, a doghouse in the shade, and a pickup with plates. Only a few months expired, an American flag snapping in the wind like punctuation. The screen door creaked and out stepped a woman in big sunglasses and an Attitude 50s t-shirt that said Mama Bear hand towel porch stance. That whole we own the sunset energy. Can I help you, sweetest tea, sharp as wire? I think you're on my property, I said, holding up the folder, like a cross to a vampire. This was my uncle's place. I just inherited it. Hank Cole. Flicker behind the lenses, not shock. Just recognition. Then a scoff. You're Mason figures, she said like the punchline finally arrived. We've been here 6 months. My son built this house with his own hands. We've got permission. We've got permits, and you waving paper doesn't change a thing. Boots on the ground versus ink on the deed. She turned tossed. We're not going anywhere over her shoulder. Let the door slap shut and left me standing there holding legal proof while her dog sighed back into the shade. You know what I mean? The way anger can nest under your ribs and build a fire that... Act 1. The shove. I went home and started digging coffee in one hand. County databases in the other. Redford's website was a time capsule with drop-down menus that squeaked. So I did what everyone does when the past won't load. I called the clerk, got bounced around until a guy named Walt picked up. Sounded like he was reading the screen with one eye and a donut with the other. Yep, he said there was a permit, 8 months back. General Development Exemption Form 114 Property Rep, listed as, let me see, Howard Cole. Howard doesn't exist, I said. Hank existed. Howard is a ghost. Shows a limited power of attorney. Walt said like he was telling me my fries were out of ketchup. Looks right on paper. He emailed it. I opened the PDF and my stomach dropped. A neat little power of attorney dated 2 years ago, notarized by a law firm that had dissolved into dust. A signature that looked suspiciously like the one Uncle Hank used to write on his tax checks. Except my uncle could barely fill out a grocery list. Forget authorizing strangers to build a cottage on his land. I followed the breadcrumb trail. The permit application was filed by Trevor Wade, general contractor owner of Wade Homestead, LLC, which is one of those outfits that sheds its skin every 18 months and keeps the phone number Trevor's mother. Linda was my lemonade drinking greeter. Reviews online called Trevor fast, but weird one said, avoid unless you want your house to lean left. Big community guy and the county. Bless their sleepy processes, had accepted a printed map, a smile and a forged document, because Uncle Hank's land hadn't been digitized since Bill Clinton's saxophone was fresh news. I drove back out to see it with new eyes. The septic tank, the electrical run the homestead rhetoric. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a heist with drywall. And a week later, Trevor showed up at my apartment like he knew the score, mirrored sunglasses, buttoned down, fighting a losing battle with his gut. That used car lot grin. Mr. Cole, he said, we can be civil. 15 grand, cash quick, close you architects like clean lines, let's keep this clean. I shut the door, didn't slam, it didn't grandstand, just slid the deadbolt and let him hear the click. Within 24 hours, my firm got hit with 1-star reviews from TX Freedom Dad 47. My car got keyed and a new blog popped up called Vultures of Redford County, accusing me of stealing homes from families. The calls came from blocked numbers, dead air, a whisper of thief, the whole bad faith theater. I logged everything, filed a report, installed cameras, and realized, okay, they're not just playing squatters, they're playing smear. That's when the pattern found me a message from a woman named Tessa Nolan. She ran a private group called Wade Victims Network. You're not the first, she wrote, if you're ready to fight. I've got receipts. She had binders, notarized statements, 2 earlier attempts on elderly landowners, one who died mid-suit, one who settled for peanuts and disappeared. Trevor moved fast, charmed clerks, blurred language, got continuous occupancy down on paper before heirs even found the keys. You know that laugh people do when injustice is boringly predictable. Tessa had that laugh. Act 2. The pushback. I stopped waiting for permission and went hunting. Not metaphorically, I brought gloves and a crowbar to the back of my own property because the old survey said there used to be a tool shed, half collapsed under cedar and hackberry. I pried up a warped board and pulled out a weatherproof case with a letter taped to it. My name on the front and Uncle Hank's jagged script. If they're trying to take it, read this inside was a cassette recorder, a handful of notes. My uncle's voice cracked to life like a ghost, clearing his throat. Kid, if you're hearing this, I'm probably in the dirt and somebody's got oil on his tongue about building dreams. Red Chevy busted. Left headlight too friendly, kept circling. Don't let them get their hooks in you. That voice, a man who hated phones, leaving me a voicemail from the grave. I took it straight to my attorney, Dana Shaw, a litigator who smiles like a lighthouse right before the wave hits. We moved to introduce the letter and the tape, and meanwhile I set bait. A dummy listing, 10 secluded acres, private sale, no liens, vague pictures within a day. Wade Homestead reached out under a fake name asking about flexible paperwork. We staged a meeting. My buddy Leo played. The seller wore a wire. Trevor floated another 15 large today and slid a folder of streamlined title documents. The notary on those pages was already under state investigation. For fraud, cameras caught everything. Continuous occupancy counts, he said on tape, like that's how law works, like a couch counts as a deed. I showed up at zoning meetings where retired men argued about drainage and fonts because that's where you find the truth in small towns, and met a rancher named Buck Hargrove whose handshake could snap a wrench. He'd been pitched the same scam community homestead future sales. A pre-filled lease. Buck told Trevor to get off his land before he had to dig out the truck with a backhoe. I built a spreadsheet. Dates, names, screen, grabs a blueprint of the hustle that made the cottage on my land look like chapter 3 in a long, boring con. And then the twist. I got an email with a subject line that hummed like a live wire. I think I can help. Please don't ignore this, from someone named Aaron Wade. The last name made my spine sit up. We met at a public library in Marble Falls. Neutral ground, fluorescent lighting. Librarians with tennis shoes. She walked in with a backpack, hugged to her chest like it was a newborn, early 20s auburn hair, eyes tired in the honest way. My family's gonna hate me, she said, voice small, resolve big, but I can't watch them lie anymore. She had the receipts emails where Trevor used slippery language to imply ownership threads, asking clerks whether verbal claims of possession could override an uncertain deed, trail a scanned file titled Template Das LPA plus H. Cole, Doc X Creator, listed in the metadata as Trevor Wade. Aaron explained how they'd lifted Uncle Hank's signature from an old tax check, photoshopped it onto a new power of attorney. Printed, notarized, smiled, built, She slid over screenshots, too. Text from Trevor. Don't worry, Cam's bluffing. If he pushes hard, we spin it like elder abuse. Say the old man had dementia, or we buy him out. I asked why she was doing this. She looked down at her hands and said, I want to be a lawyer, not this kind. Dana prepped an affidavit, promised to protect Aaron as a witness. We organized every file into our binder of doom. My living room looked like a war room dressed by Office Depot. And when court day arrived, Redford County Courthouse smelled like burned coffee and low budgets. Judge Pierce presiding, sharp eyes, no patience for theatrics. Trevor sat in a too-tight suit next to a lawyer who kept checking the exits. Linda was behind them with her arms crossed like a tackle dummy. I walked in with Dana and a hard drive that could blot out a sunbeam. Dana started soft deed trail will certification, 20 years of paid taxes. Then she brought the hammer, the forged power of attorney, and the forensic metadata, the dummy listing sting, with transcripts and video, and finally the cassette. Uncle Hank's voice filled that beige courtroom like a church bell at midnight. You could feel the oxygen lean in. Judge Pierce didn't blink. He just nodded once, like there it is. Then Dana called Aaron, Trevor's attorney, popped up, squawking about surprise. Dana slid a sealed notice across the table that said, In legalese, sir. You were told Aaron's hands shook when she was sworn in, but when she started, the tremble burned off like fog. She told the truth. How the signature got built, how the scam got normalized at the kitchen table, how continuous occupancy had become Trevor's favorite magic trick. And when Dana put those text screenshots on the screen, the room made a sound, that involuntary classroom exhale. When a test answer is obvious. I watched Trevor's face fold in on itself, jaw tight, eyes narrowing. Not a man protesting his innocence, a man calculating the exit. Recess a hallway that smelled like copier, toner, and dust. Dana leaned close and said, This is done. We just have to let him say it out loud when the judge came back. He didn't do poetry. He did surgery, construction, executed under false and fraudulent pretense, forged documentation structure to be removed at defendant's expense. Mr. Cole is the sole and rightful owner. 48 hours to vacate, no stay, no slow walk. Just the sound of a gavel and Trevor's chair not moving. Afterward, Aaron slipped me a thumb drive. Everything else I could pull, just in case they try something sideways. She melted back into the traffic court crowd, small as a kindness, big as a choice. And within a month, the state board suspended. Trevor's license audits opened on 5 homestead projects. One half-built structure got bulldozed after another. Landowner proved a signature was pasted together like a ransom note. Trevor vanished to wherever men go when the mirror stops working, rumor said. Louisiana. Rumor also said his truck got repossessed behind a Waffle House. Linda sold her place and left no casseroles delivered. No neighbors waving the porch light of sympathy, just burned out. Act 3. The quiet after I brought a folding chair and a thermos to my land at dawn. The morning the demo crew arrived, pink sky spilling over the hills, a pair of hawks carving lazy figure eights overhead. The foreman read the court order, tipped his hat, and his crew went to work. Shingles came off like old scabs. The porch went down in one long sigh. A wall buckled and the cottage folded in on itself with a crash that rolled through the cedars like applause. The foreman wiped his neck and asked, "You want it hauled?" I said, "Leave it. I'll take it from here." And he nodded the kind of nod men give another man when they know the job is part muscle, part soul. I cleared the site with my own hands. Weekends with a rented trailer, a pair of blistered palms, a playlist that could carry weight. I filled trenches, raked the scar. Smooth stood there and tried to feel the ground settle. Then I sketched not a trophy home, not a magazine flex, a simple place with wide windows to the east and a porch that could host stories. Cedar beams, 2 bedrooms, No pretense. Just something honest, permits filed under my name, inspections passed with actual signatures, pours and frames, and final walks done in daylight. That winter, I opened it as a quiet rental off-grid piece with a legitimate paper trail, and visitors started finding it without me trying. Because real things tend to... We built something else, too. Buck and Tessa and me and a handful of landowners who'd had enough of cute paperwork and friendly predators. We called it the True Deed Alliance, a little watchdog outfit that offered real estate consults and a tip line the first month a woman used it to stop a fraudulent mineral rights grab before it even left a notary's desk. We're not an HOA. We're the neighborhood nosy aunts and uncles who read the fine print and show up with clipboards when somebody says, "Trust me." On my front gate, just under the number I screwed in a cedar plank I carved myself, it says, "You don't live here, I do." It makes guests laugh. But people get the point. Place matters, paper matters, truth matters, and sometimes the loudest thing you can do is sit on your own porch with coffee and watch the sun come up over a piece of earth you didn't let anybody steal. So here's the thing. I keep turning over like a coin-catching light. Where's the line between a second chance and a second scam, between a neighbor down on their luck and a neighbor who learned how to monetize your mercy? Do we forgive the person once the house is rubble, or do we follow the blueprint and fix the system so the next person doesn't need a cassette from the grave to be believed? You tell me. If this story got under your skin, if you've seen land grabs dressed up like community, if you've watched a small lie put on boots and call itself a homestead, drop your take in the comments. Tell me what justice looks like to you. Tell me where you draw the line and whether the porch light ever comes back on for people who turn it off on purpose. Like, share, argue, push back, because the only way this stuff stops is if regular folks start comparing notes. And the only way good ground stays good is if we keep showing up to stand on it together.